Very good morning, children. In the previous class, I started the lesson separation of substances. So, under this lesson, we discussed about various methods of separation of substances. So, in that, we also discussed about different methods of separation of substances by sedimentation, decantation, and as well as filtration. So I also demonstrated you how filtration of water can take place. Okay, how do you get the pure water out of muddy water by the sedimentation, decantation as well as filtration in the lab activity that I have demonstrated to you. So now today's class, let us learn only the two concepts. Those two are evaporation as well as condensation. So before let us know let me explain you the definition of evaporation. Okay, so simple activity, let's do that. Okay, just I would like to convey you the simple activity. So what you need to do is take one beaker. Okay, start heating up with the Bunsen burner. Okay, what happens here? The water in the beaker starts boiling. Okay, so continue supply the heat to the beaker. Okay, so go on heating the beaker with a heavy amount of supply of heat. So what happens here after some time? So all the water in the beaker starts evaporating. Ultimately, all the water in the beaker becomes disappeared in the beaker. Okay, it is due to evaporation. Means liquid is converted into completely water vapor or a gaseous form. Okay, so now little changes in that activity. Now what you do? Take a beaker. Okay, add some water to it. Take 2 tablespoonful of salts and add it to the beaker containing water. Okay, so after adding 2 spoonful of salt to a beaker containing water, okay, so do you see any change in the color of the water in the beaker? No, obviously no. So then, does there is a change in the color, or after if you start heating, now you start heating the beaker containing the salt water? Yes. Do you observe any change in the color of the beaker? No, obviously no. So what happens now? Start heating the beaker containing salt water. So what happens there? Slowly the water in the beaker getting heated up and it starts rising up. Okay, it starts converting into vapor form or gaseous form or steam form. And ultimately after a few minutes all the water gets evaporated and only the salt is left behind. Okay, so this is how evaporation takes place. Okay, so with these examples, activities and examples, let me explain you the definition. Okay, so it's a process. Okay, what is evaporation? It's a process of conversion of water into its vapor form. Water is nothing but liquid. So liquid may be in any form. So usually we take water. Okay, so it's a process of conversion of water into its gaseous form. Okay, steam we call it as. Okay, gaseous form. So that is what is what evaporation. So for example, okay, you are keeping the any container to cook any food. So you are up to some temperature when you provide, it is boiling. So when temperature exceeds beyond the minimum or normal temperature, the water starts boiling. No, so that gets converted into steam, that is vapor form. So that's why, so liquid has some normal temperature, it can boil. After normal temperature it starts rising up, means getting converted into vapor form or a steam form. That is what evaporation is taking place. Okay, so now let's move on to the concept. So how do you think that we get the salt from the sea water? Yes, already you know that. So you might have tasted. Yes, the sea water always tastes what? Salty. Because there are many kinds of salts are dissolved in it. Okay, so among those salts, one of the salt which is dissolved in the sea water is common salt. We call it as sodium chloride. Okay, so what happens here is how they prepare the salt means what they are going to do. So they are going to allow the sea water to stand in a shallow pits. They are going to make different sized pits. Okay, just the places which are in the coastal areas. So the people, what they are going to do, they are going to make a shallow pits where the sea water is allowed to stand. Okay, after a few days, you just observe them. So because of the heat of the sun, the liquid or the water in the shallow pits slowly getting converted into gaseous form by the heat of the sun, and finally after few days all the liquid, all the water in the which is present in the shallow pits, no, it gets evaporated, leaving behind salts. So finally all the water is evaporated because of the heat of the sun, 10 days, 15 days like that, and what is left behind? Salt is left behind. So that is not actually pure salt. So that salt is a mixture of salts, right? So that will be purified by some processes and later on we obtain the salts. Okay, so this is what evaporation. So now let's go for the condensation process. What is that condensation? See, so the process of conversion of reverse of evaporation, the process of conversion of water vapor into liquid form, that is called as condensation. Very simple. So suppose a sand and a salt is mixed together. Is it possible to separate it by hand picking, threshing or winnowing, whatever it is? Because both are same size particle. What you need to do? So add the mixture to a beaker of sand and salt, add some water to it. What happens here? After some, allow it to keep it aside for a few minutes, allow it to stand. So after a few minutes what happens? All the sand get settled at the bottom of the container or a beaker. So now what happens? The sand is settled at the bottom, remaining of liquid, okay, which is dissolved in the salt. So salt get dissolved in the water, but sand cannot. So it remains settled at the bottom. So that water which is dissolved with the salt is transferred to another beaker. So that is called as decantation. So that decanted water contains dissolved salt. Now you have separated the sand from water containing salt, okay, but still the process is left. What is that? So the water which is dissolved with the salt is there. So that you need to separate. You need to separate dissolved salt from the water. So now what you need to do is take that decanted liquid into a kettle. Okay, kettle you might have seen. So in tea shops they are going to provide you shop with the help of kettle. So add that decanted water to a kettle and what you do? Close its lid, its mouth. Okay, what you can say, lid you close it. Okay. So now start boiling it. So when you start boiling it, so water gets heated up and started getting heated up means it starts to convert into liquid to gaseous form or steam form. So through the snout. Okay. So if you just imagine just here. It's a kettle, okay. Kettle is the real like this. Okay, in the front it has a snout like this. One snout will be there for a kettle. Okay, so you know giving the heat for this. Okay, for the kettle. At that time, the water is getting heated up and it is coming in the form of gaseous form through the snout. Okay, it has a snout through which you are going to supply the tea is transferred to another cup or beaker, whatever it is. So through the snout, the boiled water or heated water is escaping in the form of vapor. Now what you do? Place a metal plate which is on which ice is kept. Piece of ice is kept. So now what happens? When the steam comes in contact with the cool surface of the metal plate containing ice, it gets converted into liquid droplets. It gets converted into liquid droplets. So the liquid droplets start falling down from the plate. From where did it water come? It is nothing but the steam is only getting converted into liquid, not the ice. Ice is as this, because when the steam comes in contact with the cool surface of the metal plate containing ice on it, so that the steam gets converted into again liquid form and fall down in the form of water droplets. So I hope you have understood this concept. Means now we have separated. Pure water is left here. So the heat, the water is getting converted into steam. So salt is left behind in the kettle, and the steam is converted. The water is getting converted into steam that is falling down as a droplets. So like that, so condensation process takes place here. What happened here? It's the process of conversion of water vapor into liquid form. So water vapor, the steam is going out. That is converted into again liquid form. How? By the cool surface of the metal plate. So this process is called condensation. So dear students, remember these two concepts. They are totally very interesting, very important, and they are vice versa. Okay. Here in evaporation, the liquid is converted into vapor form or steam form. Here in condensation, the steam is converted into liquid form. Yes. I hope you understood these concepts and activities. Thank you and have a nice day.